to share knowledge and quench their thirst of knowing things of the immaculate eternities of the principles of the universe. And no doubt I am also equally proud of our ancestral pride, which you have heard through stories and other fictions, and as well as each and everybody in their respective faculty, the medical discipline of the previous speaker that has made him to share his experiences when there was a combined study of both the traditional and technical schools of thought in medicine. Like the scholars in Veda, the scholars in Sanskrit, they have undergone a deep probe into the various things of modernization as well as the antediluvian textures of our ancient pride. But still there are a lot of problems in practically implementing these things, except pride and creating inspiration or bravery towards a nation's glory of the yesteryears. What is the practicality? Number one, let me ask you a question which I have asked in the Indian Science Congress. If in the earlier 7th, 8th centuries we could have dealt with something in physics, something in astronomy, something in marine engineering, textile engineering, pottery, architecture and whatever may be the fine arts and specialty sciences, if we are ahead by a millennium in the earlier centuries, what happened to our own uninterrupted disciplinic and disciplic succession by which we are not able to pre-run or pre-rule something even for a decade? We have been overruling millenniums. We were able to predict something, we have been able to do something which the other schools of thought of the Western world, it took 1,000 years of continuous probe and exploration and intellectual exercises to derive the same result. That too with sufficiency, that too sometimes with limitation, something with adverse effects, something with imperfect understanding. So it took lot of centuries for the Western world to understand and to implement whatever we have done in our earlier years. What has happened to us? Now why can't we do the same forerunner or the pioneership just even for 2 years or 6 months? If we have such a type of system to deal with the knowledge of 17th century in the 3rd century itself, why in the 20th century we cannot at least update and upgrade our levels to the contemporary level of sciences which exist in the world? In automobile engineering, in genetic engineering, in various other things except eschatology, metaphysics, cosmology, ontology, thaumatology and other sciences of occultism, in most of the sciences the Westerners are the forerunners. We are not upgraded. For example, even the syllabus, when I have attended a medical conference, Gandhi Medical College, the syllabus that is available with the Gandhi Medical College as well as the infrastructure and the lab facilities, that is totally a decade back when compared to the universal upgradation level of medical innovation. Why it is not so? Practically we are not having anything upgraded even to the level of the contemporary systems. This is the ancestral glory. So it is not against the ancestral glory, it is not to shun on the ancestral glory or to belittle it. It is the proper methodology of creating not only a glorification but also a conceptualization, visualization and materialization process of taking our ancestral glory, inculcating it in the minds of young and energetic personalities, culminating it into the rethroning facility and rethroning festivity of our ancestral glory once more in the universal scenario. Number one, the reason for the victorious present as well as the past, we have to just have a bifurcated distinguishable study. The Westerners, they are based on intellectual exercises. You know that the mind starts with curiosity, the upgraded mind that creates comparative study, then it culminates into creative brain and innovative brain. Whatever that has come as instinctive or of universal common wavelength or wavelength or frequency identity, there are 3 principles of psychology. One is instinctive. If somebody eats and digests, we must not say that the digestion and appetite have come from Vedas. It is instinctive and it is common throughout the world. And second thing very important is universal and common. There are some common global features in which the persons may different, periodicity may different and the person's background and the structure and status that may be different, but it is universal and common. The third thing, very important thing is frequency, match or wavelength identity. Whenever you think about something, whenever you say about something, naturally, in stories also we used to hear that somebody thinks alike without being known to each other, without having the sharing of the concept to each other, there is an accidental or a predestined conceptive match or frequency in identity. Likewise, somebody thinks here means similar thing may be thought by somebody else. So, these rules of psycho-clashes of frequency identity as well as common or global universal thinking, these faculties are to be understood before entering into the glorification system of the Vedic principles. Then if it is common, universal and accidental, what is the greatness of the Vedic school of thought? Number one, the Vedic school of thought understood the principles of eternity, that is the Nitya. If a person can understand something which is immutable and undisturbable by structural and functional variations and degradations, that is Swarupa Vikaraspada Vastu, Achetana Vastu. Swabhava Vikaraspada Vastu, Atma Vastu, Chetana Vastu. Ubhayatrapi Vikarahinaha Paramapurushaha Purushottamaita Vidiyate. So, this type of understanding on the basic rules of the immutability, all the living beings, the sentient creatures are having functional degradations and modifications. And mutabilities of structural modifications are there in the insentient, inanimate creatures. And that element that is eternally free from the blemish of modifications, contractions, expansions, upgradation and degradation, loss and benefit, being produced and being destroyed, being solved and dissolved. The person who is eternally free from these sort of the blemishes, one who is far beyond the boundaries of limitations, demarcation, such a person is known as Purushottama. If a person could understand basically a blemishless subject as a substratum, as a substantial originator for all these species, by understanding that Tena Vijnanena Sarva Vijnanam Bhavati, by understanding that particular tool, there are two types of problems. It is the problem between a lame and blind, Pangu and Andhaka. So, the persons who are available with the pursuit of the supreme truth and supreme benefit, which is known as liberation or emancipation, they are least bothered about material blemishes because of their capability of making us aberrant, deviated from the pathway of morality and perfection. And those who are always in the intellectual exercise of bhoga, in understanding the materials and observing the exploitation principles of the materials for a racial supremacy, spatial supremacy and self-centric global community development, those people they little bother about understanding of the basic principles. So, the mutual communion gap between these two communities, in which the first person they did not care, they need not understand about the modernization, and modern people cannot understand about the traditional glory of the ancestral treatises. There was always a bridge that is to be constructed between traditionalism and technicality, which is going to fill up all the gaps of global warming, biodegradation, ethical degradation, population overloading, and global pollution methodologies, and various other hazards of the bioethical problems that we are facing now. Everything is to be bridged by means of a traditional controlling spirit system, by means of which the science can be made totally hazard free, with foolproof and totally without any sort of resulting in the calamity or turmoil towards our successorial generations and to the earth as a whole. Number one, what we want to say is, a person starts with the work of mind, then the fructified person achieves it with the work of intellectual exercise. Intellectual exercise is based on observation, experimentation, trial and error, comparative study, etc. So it is the work of science, and it is known as an empirical science. That is known as Pariksha Vijnanam. It is known as Sakshatkara Vijnanam. It is known as Nirikshana Sakshatkara Vijnanam. That is known as Pariksha Pradarshana Vijnanam. That is an empirical science, and it is science of realization. So this type of realization science is a spiritual exercise. For example, I want to say two things. Number one, the persons who have brought out the compendium of the Vedic scriptures, they had two practices. For example, if somebody has amassed a lot of wealth, uncontrollable wealth, far beyond the comprehensibility of a person's rationale, immediately will ask, how did you get this wealth? And we will try to apply if possible. So if there is a spiritual wealth of our ancestors, we have to ask three questions. One, do we have that eligibility either to innovate such new wealth, or at least to adapt the already existing wealth and to commercialize this, at least for our benefit as well as to extend it for the global benefit. Number two, what is the eligibility or the basic criterion that has necessitated, let us dynamically energized those ancestral spheres to get into the progress of understanding the truth that we have to ponder upon. Number one, we have to analyze that our ancestors, they have been dignified by austerity and penance, incessant thought of the principles of eternity and infinity. If somebody can understand eternity, they can understand all perishable elements within that pyramid. If a person can understand infinity, they can understand the values of all finite substances which are under the control. So any persons being finite in nature, also willing to understand something which is finite in finite circumstances, that is just equal to andhenaiva niyamana yathandaha swayam dhira panditam manyamanaha. So those people who are finite in nature, who are progressing to understand something within the finity, they will be having limited knowledge or futile knowledge or knowledge with adverse effects that could not stand the period of erosion of time, the erosion of testability over generations and periodicity that will not be ever got by this process. A person who could understand the infinity by the grace of the infinity. A person out of his blemishless immaculate nature, by his principles of honesty and spiritual truthfulness, a person could be a good receptacle of the divinity. Then only he can be a good conductor as well as a promulgator of the divine wisdom. So this type of understanding of the Vedic wisdom clearly says that they have been compiled by a different type of personalities who are not available now. I used to ask three questions. Who are all the producers of Vedic knowledge? Number two, who are all the receivers of Vedic knowledge? Number three, what are the environmental conditions of the socio-economical, political, physical, mental, intellectual situations on that era? We cannot adapt all things to all places with all people. Common hasty generalization of all principles without qualification, without eligibility construction is merely a daydream, and it is an ant castle. Nobody can get inside and dwell. They have been compiled by people of high-end intellectual frequency who are modified, who are burnt with that financial fire and their austere principles. The receptors, they were also equally, they were very capable. And when we are saying about the Shishya Lakshana, Shishya must be Astika, Dharmashila, Shilavan, Shuchi, Gambhira, Chatura, Dhira, Shishita Vidhiyate. So there are some qualities. Whenever we go to some place for purchasing something, you understand what is the commodities price and how much you have in purse for purchase of the same thing. Likewise, what is there in your intellectual capability? What is there in your spiritual dignity to reach that and to get that and to be benefited? This is the main thing which we want to know, that we have to qualify ourselves to give three things. For example, to innovatively deal with spiritual wisdom, number one, already available wisdom is that to adapt that you need a special technology and methodology of self-disciplinary methodology, and the third thing is to apply those things. For that also you need special things. So just by telling the stories, he was telling about Parikshit. There is also an impression. It is known as intrauterine impression, or it is known as ambipsychological impact, that comes from two sources. One is the intra sources, that is known as exouterine and endouterine impact, used to call in gynecology. What is endouterine? That which is transmitted from the mental situation of either aggression, agitation, depression, frustration and various other negative as well as the positive points of happiness, rejoicing things, mutual enjoyment and domestic relations, construction of new relations, travel, tourage, picnic, excursion, good food, each and every positive and negative imprint of the mother is transferred within the body. It is endophysical. And exophysical comes from the nearby relations, neighborhood, the songs that we accidentally, incidentally hear through various other instruments, and various other negativity that is very munificently spread by the negative people who are residing in the neighbors, and good sounds that we hear from the recitants of Vedas, the musicals, the sounds that are coming from rituals and rites. So various other things, physical, microphysical, subtle physical, tangible and various these elements, exophysically and endophysically, that affects the child in molding. Apart from that, there are five major factors. One, the samskara, the imprints with which the child is born. Number two, all the experiences that is there in the intrauterine status, that is experienced from the mother and from the sources. Number three, the methodology of samskaras, the refinement by means of, that is Garbhadana, Narayana Bali, Nishkramana, Pitu Darshana, Matu Darshana, Chandra Darshana, Ale Pravesa, Surya Darshana, Karnavedi, Akshararambha, Shika, then Upanayana, then Mantropadesha, Akshara Lekana, Dikva Lekana, Vivaha Samskara. All of these, each and every samskaras is methodologically, if systematically, sincerely done by effectively learned personalities, dedicated personality, they have some impact. And the fifth thing is environment. The environment, what is the domestic environment of the family, the academic environment of the school, the social environment of the society in which he dwells, and the fraternal environment of his personal and casual friends. So all of these innumerable factors, they determine a person's status, a child's status. And no doubt these intrauterine mothers think they root inside and give some benefit. We have seen lot of people, Ugrasena has produced Kamsa, and Hiranyakashipu has produced Prahlada, and from Vena they have cloned and produced, that is Prithu Chakravarti in Bhagavata. So those things are with Vishishta Vyakti, Sarvatra Evam na Upapadyate ityartha. That is with some sort of limitation. For example, a child inside the womb, certainly it can grasp things in the surroundings and retain them in his mind and reflect when it is mature. But there is a limitation for that. We cannot say that the child can understand all complications and the intricacies of knowledge. Basically, all of the outputs that are coming from the surroundings, they will be in the formlet of very, very subtler than the subtlest atomic structures, which are microsubtle in nature. And whenever the child goes for education, whenever it goes for a natural maturity or induced maturity by knowledge seeking processes and knowledge management, immediately the already made crude imprints, they will be then bifurcated and trifurcated and polyfurcated, and those enzymes that are created will culminate with that of the experience around there, and it will produce the given results. And Parikshit, they are the people of a different yuga. It is known as Sajatiya Vailakshanya. Even though they are human beings, they were of different nature, different lineage and different periodicity. Their yuga is different, number one. And their Vamsha is different, lineage is different. So in spite of being the same human in nature, homogenetic in nature, they have homogenetic salient future, which is known as Sajatiya Vailakshanya. Now I want to say 3 points and conclude this issue because it is a separate seminar and requires a lot of discussions and interactive conversations to conclude this. Regarding the Vedic wisdom, what we are going to do with the Vedas? Number one, are everybody, each and every person available here or the audience available here going to master the Vedas? Vedas, Anantavai Vedaha. They have to understand the Vedas, and for understanding the Vedas, they have to understand the Ucharana Vidya. It is Siksha Shastra. It is known as Gajaposhanam. I can just very benevolently donate you 1 or 2 elephants which may cost 20 or 30,000. But how you can take care of the elephant, to feed the elephant, to make a compatible accommodation and everything, it is very difficult, you say. So Vedas, they require Siksha, phonetic perfection, then Kalpa, application perfection, Vyakarana, grammatical perfection, Nirukta, etymological probe, Chandas, prosodical determination, Jyotisha or Kala Vijnana, temporal decision or temporal precision. It understands with Mimamsa Nyayas. Without Mimamsa, it is very difficult to interpret. Bibhetyalpa Shutat Vedo Mamayam Pratarishyati. So, Vedas are not ready-made products, but Acharyas and whatever that comes from Acharya is a ready-made product. If you are showering with the ice fall and if you are shivering with the consequential cold, you cannot cultivate cotton and then at that time you cannot be doing this weaving process. You cannot satiate a person who is in terrific appetite by saying that just now you have purchased a land in which you are going to sow paddy. So, ready-made availability of the Vedas are of 4 types. We must not consider that the Vedas are only Agni Mile, Vishet Varjetva. Vedas are in the form of 4 levels. That which is Antarveda is in the form of pure consciousness and conscience inside you. That which is in the verbal form is the Shruti which we are reading with Ishet Varjetva, Agnaya, Hi Shanno Devi Rabhite. Everything is there. And the mobile Veda, that is known as the Acharya. The immobile Veda in the oral form is the text and treatise. And the mobile Veda, the simplified Veda, the Vedas that have been spicily, juicily made with. See, when you get paddy from the agricultural land, you may get paddy with stone and other unwanted elements, trivial and dusty elements. It will be full of tinsels. The same paddy if you receive from a shop, the paddy's skin will be removed, it will be polished, and all the other unessential elements will be removed and it shall be neatly packed and produced to you. The same paddy in the form of rice is received from your mother, beloved mother. It will be cooked, it will be juicy, it will be spicy, it will be sumptuous and salubrious for your health. She knows about your appetite, she knows about your digestion, she knows about your taste. So whatever you receive from the Vedas, it is like a Krishi Kshetra Gatam Tandulam. Apanagatam Tandulam that is available in the shop is from the Shastras, other derivations. Whenever you receive from an Acharya, it is ready-made food that is sumptuous and salubrious. So the Vedas are to be respected, no doubt Vedas are to be protected, but the easiest way of understanding the Vedas are through the mobile sources. Number one, oral sources are the scriptures in the treatise form. The silent source of the Vedas, recited Vedas are the verbal treatises. Unrecited silent Veda is inside your conscience, that is Antaryami. And Paramatma is the Vedakara, he is the form of Vedas. And Acharya Shishta, they are the mobile Vedas, they have the purified form of Vedas. They have the simplified form of the Vedas. They have this most sweetened form of the Vedas. We have to approach such Acharyas and establish institutions, not between student and teacher, but with a disciple and a preceptor. Acharya and Shishya, not Shikshaka and Manavaka. So we have to re-establish that school of thought. Number one, we have to bring the same teachers, we have to bring the same qualities within the learners, we have to bring back the same institutions. Unless we bring back the same methodology of learning, same persons to learn, and same persons to teach, how can you bring back the glory of Vedic wisdom? With that, I just complete my session on the Vedic wisdom. Certainly it is worthy enough to be elucidated separately on a session with more explorations and clarifications. Narayan, Narayan, Narayan.